I'm Leo Walder for Kit Guru. This laptop here is the Gigabyte Aero 15x V8. The V8's the really significant part because this is an Intel 8th generation mobile processor, i.e. Coffee Lake, the mobile version of the processor that launched last year. Let's just run Cinebench R15 and we'll see the 6 cores and 12 threads doing their thing at great speed. So basically we're looking at 50% more performance than the previous quad-core Kaby Lake processors. Actually it's close to 40% aligned for clock speeds. Never mind that, it's a mere detail. Much more performance than previously. All the other features of this laptop really exciting. So it's called a 15x, which means it's a 15-ish inch format. In actual fact, the chassis is more akin to a 14-inch laptop. The panel is a 15.6 inch. It's a full HD resolution, this model. There is apparently a 4K version in other territories, may or may not come here, who knows. Look at that, finished already. And we've got a full HD resolution, so 1920 by 1080. We've got a couple of M.2 storage slots inside, one SSD installed in this laptop. It's a 500 gig SSD, a bunch of DDR4 memory, and NVIDIA GTX 1070 Max-Q graphics. There is nothing about this laptop not to like. Albeit you'll probably have your views about the RGB keyboard, which is powered by Gigabyte Fusion, but it's good. No two ways about it, it's good. Let's just shut down Cinebench and show you something slightly more interesting, such as Time Spy. Now obviously I'm running this with the power brick connected because if I did it on battery the performance drops through the floor, but we've come to expect that. The power supply is this very slender unit. It was rated just over 200 watts and it has a USB port on the end, so if you want to plug in your phone or some such to charge while the laptop's plugged into the mains, you can do that quite easily. The panel's hugely significant because that's a 144Hz panel. So we've got a really large panel, a tiny 5mm bezel, huge refresh rate. It looks good. There is nothing about this laptop to dislike at first flush, and yet I'm horribly conflicted. And the reason I'm horribly conflicted is that in this run-up to the Intel Mobile 8th Gen launch in very early April, I actually saw a few weeks ago MSI's GS65. Natalie from MSI came down and saw me here, brought along a laptop which I was not allowed to benchmark. So that video is going to be going up at the same time as this one, or slightly before, or slightly around the same time is the point. But I've got a preview of the GS65 and only a preview. I was not allowed to benchmark that laptop. In fact, I could do nothing particularly useful apart from look at it and wonder. So it's black and gold, but fundamentally the specification of that laptop and this have a huge amount in common. In particular, the large panel in the smallish chassis, very slender chassis, powered by NVIDIA Max-Q graphics and the Coffee Lake 6-core processor and M.2 SSDs and a bunch of DDR4. The similarities go on and on. And because all these manufacturers are developing their laptops alongside each other, and obviously they're not supposed to know each is up to, they're both claiming the thinnest bezel on a large panel laptop, and yet the two laptops on paper are so similar. So I do not know what the performance of that MSI GS65 is. I do know about the performance of this Gigabyte Aero 15x V8, and it's impressive. So I'm kind of conflicted because I know there's almost like its twin brother in a slightly different colour scheme from the other manufacturer out there. It's frustrating actually, because I really want to know what the MSI does, so I know whether this is as good as it feels or if the other one's slightly better or slightly worse. Is this good or is it really good? I actually don't know. Frustrating. It's a good laptop. It's 18mm in thickness or thinness. It's not perfect. I mean, as I'm sitting here now with a Time Spy looking good, the noise is doing my head in slightly. The fans in this laptop have 15 stages of 15 steps in the speed. So it's not an entirely step-less fan curve, but 15 steps. It's good. I mean, compared to some of the old crash bang wallop we used to have to contend with, I can't exactly complain about the fan curves and the steps. In fact, it's very sophisticated. There's some software I'll show you in a bit called Deep Fan, which you can configure to your heart's content, or you can let the system handle it for you. But that side of things is good, but you've got an inevitable problem with a thin chassis like this and components that are kicking out a certain amount of heat. The processor, the Coffee Lake, so Core i7-8750H is the new model code. That is a 45-watt part. The Max-Q graphics obviously add their bit. We've got a cooler at either corner. two cooling, a fan on each cooler, and then we've got two heat pipes going across the insides of the chassis. So the cooling system is nothing amazing. I mean, it's meant to do a certain job, whereas the MSI cooler, apparently not that I've been inside the laptop yet, has 3 fan units on it. And MSI does have a reputation for doing good stuff with their mobile cooling solutions. So this, my initial impression is slightly cruder than that. And there's something about this cooling system that really surprises me, which is it's such a thin chassis. There are no vents on the front, back or sides. That's no great surprise, just because otherwise it'd be like nozzles. The air intake is here, good score, and the exhaust is there underneath. Now, that has two downsides. The one is if you put it in your lap or put it on a surface, particularly if you put it on soft furnishings, it's going to get hot. The other thing is that you've got the noise as the air is expelled and bounces off whatever surface it's on. It's now quietened down quite nicely, quite quickly. I did a bit of back-to-back testing, and I put the laptop up on a couple of blocks on the two corners just to give it yay much gap underneath, and it reduced the noise significantly. I mean, not earth-shakingly so, but it did make a difference to the noise quality. It also dropped temperatures by 4 or 5 degrees on both the GPU and the CPU. So the fact the exhaust is on the underside, I'm not mad keen on that. I can see why they haven't gone for the air coming in from the sides and out to the rear in the traditional way, because the laptop is so thin. Nonetheless, if you're going to put this hardware in a slender chassis, something has to give, and in this instance, it's the cooling system's working hard, and as a result, it is fairly noisy. And I find that frustrating, I do. Because were I to buy this laptop, and it's a relatively expensive laptop at £2,200, I'd want to use it for video editing. And the thing is that if I was to edit videos and have this sitting there hammering away for an hour or two while it's rendering a video, making that noise, I'd want to chuck the thing out of a window. That's, I would suffer. You do sometimes see people with hard-working laptops and such like, let's just take the power brick out for the second, and they end up propping it like so. So once you're rendering a video or whatever, plugging the mains in obviously, and then you're letting the air go through it to the maximum effect, which is slightly funny in a way. No reason why not. When you're rendering a video, you're not doing any other work. You basically just have to leave it working. So that makes as much sense as any. But to buy a £2,200 laptop and leave it propped up like that, I don't know, it does seem a bit peculiar. That is, I think, the course of action I'd have to follow if I was to use this for some proper work. The other thing, of course, is gaming. This laptop, the combination of M.2 SSD, bunch of DDR4, decent panel, 6 cores of mobile processor, and NVIDIA GTX 1070 Max-Q graphics, it games. I've got a bunch of test results I'll stick over on KitGuru, but basically the latest AAA games, it's running at 60 frames a second at high image quality, so it does the job. That's all there is to it. You do need to run on mains power for that. If you pull the cord, the figures just drop off. It's a gaming machine, it's a working machine, and then they put the RGB keyboard in. I've set it to Rainbow Marquee purely for this video. When I was working with a laptop doing benchmarks and such like and getting a feel for the thing, I had that set to just white, steady white. This sort of thing drives me nuts. I can't type on a keyboard like this. It's purely for the show of it. Steady color, absolutely fine. All the effects that are built into Fusion, I can't use any of them. Every single one of them looks interesting enough and is totally impractical for regular use, and that's a fact of life. As in fact is the keyboard. Frustrating because we've got the numpad to one side, we've got all the regular keys, and then we've got the delete and the enter inboard. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. I appreciate that there is also an enter key outboard, but I want my delete key to be to hand, and having it in there, that's the sort of thing, it's just like, yeah, can really do without it. And the number of times I use a numpad on a laptop, it's not often. Whereas having the correct keys in the correct position, that's the sort of thing I do find important. It's okay to type on, nothing super special, but then again, short travel keyboard, such a thin laptop, not a major surprise. Ports and connectors, considering how little space there is, they've done a good job. So we've got one USB 3.1 Gen 2, we've got an HDMI 2.0, a mini display port 1.4, we've got a headset jack, we've got Ethernet, which is a Realtek gigabit. We've got nothing on the back, there's an SD card slot there. That is a Thunderbolt 3 Type-C, and then we've got a couple of regular USB 3.0s as we think of them, or USB 3.1 Gen 1s if you prefer, power, and then Kensington lock. So all the ports and connectors you could reasonably ask for. The finish of the thing is matte enough. I've given it a bit of a wipe on occasion, but it's not like a fingerprint magnet. It's got a decent matte coating on the screen, all perfectly good. So all the important pieces are in the correct place. Pricing is a tad scary, as I say, just over the £2,000. I don't think it has that kind of lovely cachet feeling that you get with, say, a Razer laptop, where you just look at it and go, I want, you know, the Apple thing, where it's just, I want it. This is one of those things where you look at it and you go, there's nothing to dislike in terms of the feature set. The features are all present and correct. I'm actually not sure what I think about the software, which I know is a Weasley thing to say in a review. So if we go to these folders on the desktop, and this is, I mean, I've added a bunch of testing software, but if we look at gaming applications, these folders here were supplied by Gigabyte. We've got a bunch of applications, including Gigabyte Fusion, but also XSplit Broadcast. And then down here we have Smart Manager, which is like a little console that contains a bunch of interesting bits and pieces. And this is the fan control utility. Tap it the once. Allows us to set our custom fan curve with 15 separate points. So at each of those increments of temperature, the fan speed can increase as you see fit. I don't really feel the need or the urge or the desire to set up a fan curve for a laptop. To my mind, that's what Gigabyte should be doing. They're the experts, they got the development people, they know what the temperatures are all about, and they should set it to work correctly. The thing is, if you hammer this laptop in a stress test such as Ada 64, it sits there howling away, the CPU starts to throttle, and the temperature is borderline unacceptable. It goes to the 90 degrees and it's not happy, then it pulls back. And it sounds noisy. The fact of the matter is it doesn't hit those temperatures in regular use, but it does get reasonably warm. But then all mobile processors get reasonably warm. That's the nature of the beast. They get driven to the edge of their thermal and power envelopes, and then they get pulled back from the edge. That's just how it works to get the maximum performance. So the 6 cores, 12 threads, plus the Max-Q graphics are pumping the heat into the cooling system, and then it's kind of doing that thing. It works well, but it is noisy. I don't feel the urge to set the fan curve, just as I don't feel the urge to set the lighting pattern for the keyboard. White lights are fine, allow me to dim it if I'm, working in a dark place. I don't want the thing bright in my face, just let me turn it down a little bit. And that's pretty much me happy. If I want to turn the lights off, I'll do that as well, thank you very much. So that and that, I don't really feel the need. And it just feels to me that Gigabyte's looking at this laptop and going, well, we've done the hard work, we've put the good hardware in, we made it, the aluminium chassis and so on all looks lovely. What more can we do to make the punters happy? And in a sense, they're correct, because as I say, the MSI GS65 is a very similar specification. It looks quite different because it's black and gold and it's a bit more chunky and so on. But the specification is very similar, and I imagine the pricing will be very similar. So Gigabyte doing that, what can we do to make it, the thing is like, and then they make me set my own fan, well, they give me the option of setting my own fan curve, to be fairer to Gigabyte, and I'm not mad keen on that. I want the thing to come out of the box and just work and be lovely and not have applications scattered around the desktop. Just make my life easy. That's what I really want. I want it to be a luxurious item, not something that's going to make me do extra work. I want to use it for work and for gaming, and it does both of those absolutely fine. The hardware in this laptop is formidable. But I don't want it to make my life difficult. I want it to make my life easy. Might be silly to say, but in that sense, the RGB keyboard and the control software for it, and also the fan control software, which sound in a way like they're getting me more engaged with the laptop, actually, in my mind, have the opposite effect. Curious, but true. But then that's kind of often the way with reviewers on bloatware, isn't it? We go, oh, bloody bloatware. And in this case, this isn't really bloatware. This is kind of essential to the workings. This is not like antivirus software. The first thing you do is rip it out. This software is going to remain with this laptop. I wouldn't dream of taking it off, but I'm not sure I actually want to use it. So in that sense, it's an irrelevance, but it's also an annoyance. Funny life indeed. Every aspect of this laptop is good. No two ways about it. On paper, it's an absolute gem. And yet, as I say, I know it is very similar to MSI GS65. So until I've done some back-to-back comparisons with other laptops which are going to have very similar specifications, because they're, they're all going to be paired with NVIDIA graphics, that's just obvious. Until I know whether this is unnecessarily loud and toasty or whether it's just par for the course, I won't know whether it's a contender or one to ignore. As things stand, I've got my reservations about that cooling package in that slim chassis. I do. The air exhausting underneath does not strike me as a good idea. The noise I'm not happy about, but this might be typical. I just don't know right now. I'm going to have to see a couple more laptops to come to a firm decision. And the thing is, at £2,200, I'm not going to rush into a buying decision on a laptop like this. I want to see those couple more laptops and then I'll know whether this is a good one or not quite. And at the moment, I'm wavering towards I suspect it's going to be a little bit below par, but on paper good, and it's been a pleasure to use, but we need to see more laptops like this, and they will be coming thick and fast in the near future before I can make a definitive decision. As things stand, I'm impressed by this laptop, but the jury's going to remain out for a couple or 3 more weeks just yet. If you like this video, thumbs up. If you don't, thumbs down. And if you want more from Kit Guru, click to subscribe. Hit the notification button to be alerted to more videos from Kit Guru as they come out. I'm Leo Warder for Kit Guru. This is the Gigabyte Aero 15x V8.